Hey guys, it's Amber from NotableInk.com. Welcome back. Today I'm coloring florals in two distinct styles. Whether you like bold and vibrant or soft and dreamy, I've got you covered. I'm going to start off with Hello Hydrangea. I love this stamp. The floral is so huge, which gives you a lot of opportunity for mixing and blending your colors, whether you're using markers or watercolors, whatever your favorite coloring medium is. Here is the trifold that gives you all of the design inspiration that you could need, along with products for perfect pairing. This video is part of an Altenew blog hop, so be sure to follow along with the link down below. Leave a comment on my blog for a chance to win a gift card to shop Altenew. So I considered different inks to stamp this with and then landed on Hydrangea. I know that that's quite on the nose, but it seemed to be the perfect color to use. I am going to switch things up a little bit, and I'm going to add some Fuschia crisp dye ink to the stamp set and wipe a little bit off so that it can have somewhat of a two-toned effect here. I didn't want the Fuschia to completely overtake the Hydrangea. I wanted some of that Hydrangea ink to be showing through. So just wipe off some of your ink with either a baby wipe or a microfiber cloth. I'm going to do the same thing for the leaves in the stem with Frayed Leaf and Evergreen Crisp Dye inks. This is from the Green Fields family. So I'm just going to wipe. I got a little bit of green on the blooms there, so I'm just going to wipe that off. And you can see I did get a touch of purple on the leaves, but that's no problem because your green and purple are going to make a brown color, which is really quite organic and natural, so I'm not too worried about that at all. So here I've gone ahead and stamped it in evergreen, and again I'm just taking off some of that ink with a microfiber cloth. You do want to be careful if you use a baby wipe. If it's a really wet baby wipe, then you could end up getting a little bit more of a watercolor look if it's very damp once it hits the just the regular cardstock. I'm using a piece of Neenah Classic Cross Solar White in the 80 pound here, and I've started to color with rose quartz. I'll have the colors listed on my blog post, but I'll also pop them up on the screen as I'm using them as well. So here I'm going to be doing some of the blooms in Lavender Field as the base color, and you know, typically when you look at hydrangeas, it's a multicolored flower, and that really depends, as far as I know, on the soil composition as to what color your hydrangeas are going to turn out. If you change your soil composition, it changes the color of your hydrangeas, which is pretty cool, I think. So here I'm just adding some shadows with Caribbean Sky, and I didn't add it to necessarily all of the flowers, most of them, but not all of them. This is Purple Wine, and so I'm going to add this to some of the flowers and just deepen up the color. Again, I want, you know, some variation in my bloom, so I'm skipping flowers here and there. I'm just going to blend that out with rose quartz at the edges. And I'm not going to show all of the coloring because it gets quite repetitive, but I'll just soften up some of those edges. And then for the blue-violet flowers, I'm going to soften that up with Lavender Fields. I stick to one single marker for the centers because they're so small, so I'm just filling that in with Warm Sunshine with the bullet nib. For the leaves and the stem, I use Frayed Leaf and Forest Glades. I start by filling the entirety of the leaves and stems with Frayed Leaf, then I come in with my shadows with Forest Glades. Then I'll come back in with the Frayed Leaf and just blend the Forest Glades out. I don't go any darker than these two colors, although if you wanted, you could add Evergreen to make your shadows even darker. In some cases, I'll just do a second layer of the Forest Glades. I'm only going to show the one leaf, and then we'll move on back up to the flower because the flower is looking really kind of flat. It has a lot of color in it, but it looks pretty flat. There's not a lot of delineation. So here I have the Arctic crisp dye ink, and I'm just going to re-stamp the flower to get a little bit more of the borders back to the flowers, that outline. Now I'll go in with Persian blue, which is much darker than the colors we've used so far, and I'm just going to darken up those areas that are most recessed. So those small little areas in between the individual blooms, I'll darken that up, and that's going to help to bring the flowers in the front forward and add more dimension to this overall bloom. I decided to add a bit of a background with just a sentiment strip here, and unfortunately there was some leftover ink on my ruler there that transferred to my marker, so I was just trying to get that off the nib. This is the Warm Sunshine marker, which is the same color that I used for the centers of the flowers, just to bring that color in one more area and help that pop out from the flower. So I'm going to go over this with a couple coats, and then I'll come in with caramel toffee just at the top of that strip and blend that out with Warm Sunshine. I want to create a little bit of an ombre effect, and I was trying to hide, you can see that pen mark up at the top that was, that I kind of smeared from the ruler, and I wanted to hide that a little bit more. So it was easier to do with the caramel toffee than it was with just the Warm Sunshine. I'm just going over the bottom here with another coat of Warm Sunshine to make sure everything is blended nicely. And I love how the leaf goes over that yellow stripe. Here I am stamping in Persian blue. So that was the darkest marker that we used. And then I switched to sapphire, which is the darkest color in that ink family. It almost looks black. So I wanted to pop the bloom and the stems off the page a little bit. So one of the tricks that I do is to just use a regular pencil, just any kind of household pencil you have, add a little graphite down to your page in just a few areas. You don't want to outline your image completely. You want to just pick up on the areas where it should be the darkest, where a shadow is casted, add a little bit of graphite, and then blend it out with a tortillon. Here I have a white charcoal pencil, and I decided to add some highlights to the blooms. So you can see I'm adding kind of like 2 stripes, almost like where the creases come down. And I'm adding just a little bit of white charcoal to add some highlights. I won't blend this out with a tortillon. I want to keep these white stripes really vibrant. So you will see the texture of the charcoal. You can see it kind of skips over the page. It's kind of chalky in its texture. It's not like a creamy pastel. The charcoal is more chalky than that. Here I decided to add a bit of a drop shadow to the sentiment strip here, and I think I liked it better without. But I think if I had erased it, it would have looked a little muddy and hazy, so I went ahead and kept it. But if I were to do this again, I think I would leave the graphite off of the sentiment strip here. So along with the graphite on the side here, I also decided to add a little bit of white charcoal just right on the other side of that graphite on the yellow part, to create almost a beveled appearance. And like I said, I probably wouldn't do that again. I would probably leave that off. So here's the white charcoal there. And I think I blend the white charcoal out just a touch there. So here's the close-up of the white charcoal on the blooms. I did that on the leaves as well, so you can see that the leaves got really bright as well. And it just helps to make them pop. So overall, this is a really vibrant and kind of graphic feel, almost a little cartoony. So with the Simple Roses stamp set, which is just gorgeous, there's a lot of just really nice large blooms, as well as scripty sentiments in here. And I decided to do a much softer coloring technique with this. And so you can see there's loads of inspiration in here. I love that one with the black background. I think that's so striking. And you can see they've paired it with the Mega Label Love, which is another favorite set of mine. So I'm going to pair this with the Friends Forever stamp set, which is another new product for this release. And this has loads of sentiment, but what really got me was the coffee cup, because who doesn't love coffee? I love coffee. Coffee and card making, like, they're best friends. So what I decided to do was put the Simple Rose right on top of that to-go coffee cup, and I loved the arrangement. I just thought it was so fun, and it's a card I would like to get. So I started by stamping the coffee cup on a full stick Post-it note, and I'm just going to fussy cut that out. I won't make you watch me fussy cut the whole thing. When you are fussy cutting, you do want to stamp, or you do want to trim a little bit into the line, so that when you go to stamp, you don't have any empty white spaces. I have the largest Simple Roses bloom here, and I'm stamping that in blush ink, and I have the coordinating mask from the Simple Rose mask stencil set. So I've just put that right on top of the rose, and I've offset it. And here I'm using the coffee cup mask that I made to be able to stamp my leaves. I kind of was just using it as a placeholder. I'm going to go ahead and stamp my leaves. I needed that placeholder so that I would know what would look best for my leaves, the arrangement of my leaves. So I'll go ahead and stamp the other leaf here. And then I will mask the simple roses, and then I'll grab the 2 leaves from the mask stencil set and mask those as well. So when I do these, I usually will put the leaves underneath the flower and then just put my magnet on top. It's a really strong magnet, so it holds everything down. And I'm not going to be stamping a ton. I'm really only going to be stamping the coffee cup. So I prefer to use the magnet rather than use the adhesive, which might leave some adhesive on my card. When you use the mask stencils, you want to make sure you offset them. I can see that I had mine positioned down too far because I have a white gap in between the outline of the coffee cup and the leaf in the rose. So I just pushed it up a little bit and re-stamped those areas. You want to carefully remove your mask, and you can just wipe them off with a baby wipe. And I'll go ahead and start coloring this. So I'm using the same greens. I'm using Frayed leaf and Forest Glades for these leaves. And this is an actual... This color, this marker, is much lighter than what it appears in the video. It appears a lot more vibrant on video than what it actually is. So I colored the leaf in completely with the Frayed leaf, and then I'm coming in on one side with the Forest Glades. That looked a little strange to me, almost like it had like a cupped appearance, which is okay, but it was just a little bit weird. So I decided to add some of the Forest Glades on the other side as well, so that it wouldn't be just like weirdly two-toned kind of leaf. And I'll just blend that out with the Frayed leaf, and then I'll skip through the next one so we can get to the rose. So for the rose, I'm using Blush and Rouge artist markers, and same thing, I'm going to go in with the lightest color, and I'm only going to shade with Rouge, you guys. I don't get any darker than that, and that is in order to keep this bloom really soft. I wanted a really soft, kind of almost boho chic, shabby chic appearance to this card, in contrast to the really vibrant card we did for the first one. And to do that, I'm just shading with these 2 colors, so keeping it really light. It was hard for me to do that because I really crave the high contrast in cards. It doesn't necessarily have to be vibrant, but I really like the high contrast. Now, if you were to use the other 2 markers in this set, it would have gone really, really red. But I could have shaded with a light brown or even a warm gray, and that might have given me a little bit of contrast, a little bit more contrast, but still keeping it light. So there's a little cheat sheet of the colors that I'm using in this. I'm going to shade the cup with Morning Frost and some limestone. And I do bring the gray around the bottom of the flower and the leaves as well, because those would be casting a shadow. I'm really sorry about my voice in this video. I'm struggling a little bit because I have Hashimoto's and I'm having a flare right now. And when my thyroid gets enlarged, it gets a little harder to talk and exhale. So this has been my 3rd voiceover today, and I'm struggling just a little bit with this one. So sorry about that. So here I'm using the colorless blender to just blend out those edges a little bit, and I overdid it just a tad so you can see it getting kind of mottled and a little strange looking. Here I'm going to use sand dunes and rocky shores for the wrap around the coffee cup, and then also to put in a ground or a table to ground the image so it's not just floating out there in space. So you can see I went outside of the lines. No issue there. I'll just use my colorless blender and clean that right up. I decided to use the colorless blender in the middle, and you can see that it left a harsh edge there. So I'm just going to go over that with the rocky shores, and then I'll blend that out with these sand dunes as well, just to kind of cover that up. But I want to make sure that I leave some highlight in the center so that it looks round. Here's where I noticed that I definitely needed some shadow underneath the leaves and underneath the bloom there. So I'll just blend that out with the colorless blender. And I'll do that a little bit more. So I have the 2 different grays. One is more of a warm gray, and one is a little bit cooler or more neutral. I picked 2 sentiments from the set for that, and I'm going to use my ruler again and just put in a ground here or a table. So kind of just do the one swipe just to get that line going, and then I'll put the ruler aside and then go around the cup. Now I wanted this to look almost like kind of have a wood appearance, you know, a variation in color without having to do all of the effort of making a wood grain. So I'm keeping it very streaky, and I'll actually come in with the colorless blender to remove some of the color so that it looks even streakier, making sure that I keep the darkest area around the cup where a shadow would be cast. So super easy. Here's the finished card. I added a few satin gold sequins. And there you can see I overdid that colorless blender on the cup a bit. I did a bonus card with Birch Forest stamp set here, and I had intended to add this to the video, but it was getting too long. It's a really simple stamping. I started by stamping the whole background stamp with Frayed leaf pigment ink, so the mixed media ink. Then I put down a strip of washi tape, and then I re-stamped with Volcano Lake. But before stamping, I removed some of the ink with that microfiber cloth, and then I was able to stamp the sentiment just directly over that lighter area. I hope you guys enjoyed these projects today. Two completely different styles of coloring. One is super vibrant, one much more muted. So hopefully it appeals, at least one of them appeals to your style, so you can try it out. I have a link to my blog post down below. I'd love it if you join us on the hop. Leave a comment on my blog post for a chance to enter the giveaway, and I would love it if you liked and subscribed to this video if you enjoyed it.